Welcome to the Spiritual Emergence podcast as part of Waylighter Life, where enlightened souls share their stories of spiritual awakening and re-entry into the world. The work of loving and healing our inner child and self is necessary for growth, and it's freaking hard work. We have to be willing to see the parts of us that we think are ugly and less than, to find compassion for ourselves and ultimately appreciation and respect. With others or on our own, this inner work is solitary. But when not just parts of you, but your core self is in some way outside of society's acceptance, let alone approval, this experience is even more intense, potentially causing a splitting off and suppression of that core self, the one that we can't not be because it just is. Today we meet Sam, who shares what this kind of intense experience is like and what it took to rescue himself from the grave. A true reawakening experience. When the awakening started for you, how far back does that go and how did it happen?
I feel like it goes back to childhood. I had premonitions often as a kid. I was really, really little and I went to a shed and I looked at a box and I was like, that box is going to be full of spiders.
Wow.
And because I continually gaslight myself, I don't trust my intuition, or I second guess it, or I favor logic over intuition, because logic and instinct and intuition are all things that we have, but they don't have to contradict each other. I went against my better judgment and the trust for my intuition. And I opened the box and spiders poured out. And spiders were my biggest fear.
The spider story. I love it.
Yeah. And there's something about opening a box of my fears that I perceived, but my curiosity led me to go against my better judgment and what I knew was there. But it's almost like I had to prove what I knew was there. But my mom, she told me, she said, so she and my aunt had arthritis pretty bad. It's really humid in Mississippi, so in the cold, when in the wintertime, it's very, very cold and very, very humid. So I would rub my hands together and I would put them over their hands and I would close my eyes. I would get really still and their pain would dissolve. I didn't start seeing full entities, spirits, any sort of medium and things until I was much older.
What was it like growing up with these heightened sensibilities?
I immediately recognized that I was having a different experience than the people around me, especially the children around me. I did not know how to talk to people my age. I understand that if I talk about something I'm experiencing and I see the look on someone's face, okay, that's maybe not normal. I was always leaning towards people my grandparents' age, my parents' age. I really respected my elders and I really craved connection with my elders. Because, here I am beginning a journey in life and self and they were just happy to be there with me. And I felt like we had a more genuine conversation and we could talk about anything in the world because they'd lived a whole world already. And I grew up with access to miles and miles of fields and a huge creek. And I would go to this creek every day, almost ritualistically, study the animals there and familiarize myself with the trees and plants. And I knew these fields, I knew this creek, and familiarizing myself with the water and the ebb and flow of the body of water. I feel like it gave me an opportunity to be able to have a blank slate, almost like a mirror. I don't know, when you have connection with the nature around you, a daily connection, the nature knows you back.
Absolutely.
And I just feel like I started this quest of yearning for knowing. Because I felt that I would feel less alone if I knew more about what I experienced or what was happening around me. And looking back, but we don't say these things because there's not always our words are so important and being specific with one words is very important, but there are also no words for certain things. My mother was born in 1960 in Mississippi and her mother was born in 1920 in Mississippi. So, and it's like, it's also different with like kind of like white colonial backgrounds. The women that have spiritual gifts are seen as hysterical or wrong or crazy. People just like, treating my mom like what she's saying is crazy.
So she was open about her
She's
gifts.
very open. Yes.
And what are her gifts?
My mother has no shame. She has no shame. Like, no shame at all. She has a huge heart and no shame. So
what are her gifts particularly?
My mom is very highly intuitive. She and I can communicate in our minds. And still to this day, when my phone rings, the way that my phone rings when my mother calls is it only happens in the way that my mother calls it.
Yeah.
So I feel like with her children, she's very psychically connected with us. But I think that's also just like mama powers in a way, like mothers develop a different sense for their children.
Yeah, there is. It's so interesting about what you said that it's more socially acceptable for women to have these gifts. Why do you think that is?
I think that there's a lot of that's going wrong with masculinity and like with men. There's been a lot of social control to slowly craft a story that's very false. And it's yes, men have more power, but there's still social control into like how young boys should behave, how men should behave, what men can and cannot do. And to be blunt, I feel like men in witchcraft are perceived as gay, or like it's feminine, it's for women, to discourage men from like our own self-awakening and spiritual awakening, because there is a spirituality with awakening your psyche. Even if you're the most you'll experience spiritually is yourself, that's a lot. That's huge, and that's the magic and the beauty of human beings, because like we do have a magic to us, and it's ourselves and our connection with ourselves and how we can connect with others and with nature. We're very present here, but there's through time and through like capitalism and colonialism, we have our perceptions have been trained away from ourselves. So a big part of our duty on this earth too is to unpack a lot of that, and it's burdensome, but it must happen, and we have to help each other do it. Men have been discouraged on a systemic level to express interest even in the spiritual, or because like Western thought too, like the spiritual is not logical. Like I think that there's a strength in softness and stillness and patience. And men have the vast capacity to be able to hold something with softness, though. Like there's a strength in one's softness and your ability to maintain and approach yourself. I don't know, there's just like a steadiness, I think, that comes with like masculinity, and whomever wears the masculinity, man or woman.
Beautiful. So, it's really interesting that you have brought up the masculine and how it gets expressed, how it's approved of in our culture or not. Certain expressions are approved of and some are not. How did your explorations of gender coincide with your spiritual abilities and awakening and starting to understand them? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a big question too. My younger self, my most intuitive self, like coming in, I knew who I was. I told my mother when I was 4 that I wanted my haircut like my dad, I wanted to dress like my dad, I wanted to be like my dad. She was like, okay. So at a very young age, I was hunting with all the boys and like playing sports, and you know, even like I was a child, so like my dad, and always with my dad, so like we would go to the men's room to go to the
Yeah.
toilet, you know, and so I had like almost like a second raising as like a like I chose to be a boy, and my parents allowed me to socially. I still, at the end of the day, was still like a little girl,
Hmm.
even though there was this understanding of my own masculinity and how that was a real thing that was true to me. It wasn't like just like a tomboy phase. Um,
So both
uh,
of your parents were supportive of you. You you were still, as you said, like a little girl when all was said and done, but that they pretty much treated you the way you wanted to be treated, which was as a
yeah,
boy. So both parents were supportive. That's
and
great.
to their yeah, it is great. They were really perceptive. I came out very stubborn and very willful, and very much so like I will do exactly what I'm had made up my mind to do. Like, and when it
Mhm.
comes to like myself and self expression, I'm like, this is exactly what it is and what it's going to be.
And
So it's the 6 month.
do you view that as masculine?
I feel like yes. I feel like I'm not passive
Hmm.
when it comes to myself.
Hmm.
I like as a teenager, I kind of was a little bit because I was really careful with the way that I like played myself,
Hmm.
um, because I was aware that there's a safety issue too, um, and that there's I was really keen on when I could be more myself and when I had to kind of like play the role, and so I felt like almost like a spy. I was obsessed with spies, but I'm like, I guess hiding your true self is like being a spy.
I
But
totally understand that. Yeah. You kind of
yeah,
develop a like a it's almost like a secret life in some ways. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it eventually created this huge rift within me.
Mm.
And which I love this question because you're kind of helping me tie myself through this thread because my gender is directly affected. I would say that my transsexuality is like directly
Hmm.
operational with my spirituality.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, but because I created this game of like shape shifting, I created two
Yeah.
people inside of me.
Yeah.
And I remember I was 20 when I hit my 20s was when I started getting more spiritually dense experiences.
Okay.
Um, and one of the very first was like I had like just like feelings of presence around me, like things something is watching me or
Hmm.
someone is here. Even if I couldn't see it, I was getting so many senses that I was not alone. Items moving when I would come back into the room.
Yeah.
Kind of like the early signs of like spiritual medium.
Hmm.
Um, and I just remember feeling I was always connected with my body and with myself. Um,
You were or were not?
I was, yeah, and I am now. I went through a period where I'll get to, but at this time in my 20s, so I went from like a young person, highly intuitive, highly willful, driven, like this is who I am, this is what I'm gonna do. My parents were like, yeah, we're not gonna fight you,
Yeah.
you know. And a family friend had very independent daughters as well. And my mom was just like, my child is so stubborn and like so independent, like
Hmm.
independent to a flaw almost. And Sonia, our friend, she's like, well, you make it about safety and respect. Like you let your kid do what they do, be who they are, unless it challenges like like just like teach your kids like it's not okay to disrespect people or themselves
Yeah.
and you have to be safe. So if it's a safety issue, it's a big no. If it's a disrespectful issue, it's a big no. Otherwise, let your kid just like do. It's like that's a good thing that I was really she was saying that like that's something that should be like fostered in me.
Hmm.
Um my independence and my willfulness. And because if it wouldn't, I would become, and she's right, I would have become really, I would have combated them. I would have fought. It would have been it would have been a battle. And so going into my 20s, so puberty hits, and I understand that my body's changing, and my perception as uh, me, I would just look like a crossdresser if I wanted to dress the way I wanted to dress or be who I wanted to be, you know.
You were
And
in
so
that in terms of you actually did that, or you thought to yourself like, now with this body, I would not be perceived necessarily the way I want to be perceived. Is that which one?
a little bit of both.
Okay.
I guess I just dressed very ambiguously.
Okay.
And I was like t-shirt jeans, t-shirt basketball shorts. Like I still dressed like guys dressed, but it was like
Yeah.
a little more casual. But I let my hair grow out, and I don't know. I still felt just like this masculine presence and body, but I like understood the social implications of what it would look like for me to continue to be who I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's when I started just like playing into roles. Um,
Yeah.
and just like at that time, I was very shy. I didn't have a lot of friends. It was hard for me to like talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some like, some like family trauma stuff too. Like both my parents were alcoholics, so
Mm-hmm.
I like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I was weathering a lot, and I was trying to find a lot, and so
Yeah.
I feel like my spirituality was more me staying connected with my mind, my body, and my spirit, and like more like physical practices of self and like presence. And
Mm-hmm.
because I started to notice that I developed really scary dissociative patterns and behavior in order to dissociate from my home life, from pain and the struggle, and sometimes it was scary,
Like,
you know.
can you give me an example? Are you comfortable enough to?
Yeah, absolutely. Because like, a lot of kids have like imaginary best friends or like made up best friends.
Yeah.
I had one, his name was Will. And it's funny because my parents didn't know my sex. And if I were going to be born like, assigned male,
Mm-hmm.
um, my name was going to be Will. I intuited the name, and I just like it was almost like I was manifesting a self.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like project who the parts of us, or the parts of us is a funny Freudian slip.
I
I
get
feel like
it.
there are many of me. Um, but I feel like the parts of myself that I wasn't able to express, or share or live a truth with, went onto Will.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as I grew,
Can I just,
I
before you move on, can I just ask you, like, what were some of the, um, what were some of the emotions or traits or whatever that you assigned to Will?
um, Will almost became like a second consciousness. Um,
What was the personality like, though? That, like, what could you not own in your own life that you could give to Will to live?
okay. Um, as I started to develop more feminine features.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of it was like my body. Like
Okay.
Will was more physical than like I feel like I was like talking at Will and throwing my emotions at Will. That wasn't like a conversation, but Will was this like almost like this avatar
Yeah.
for myself, this physical avatar for like what I wanted to dress like, what I wanted to look like.
Yeah.
He was almost like my little like Ken doll.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but I would like I feel like I would like just express my gripes to
Mm-hmm.
Will.
Mm-hmm.
And like, okay, so like I was at the hunt. A good example is I'm at the hunting camp with all the other boys, and this was at 9 now. And my dad's like, when you're 9, like, you know, you can get a rifle. And then 9 comes up, and I noticed that he was being weird in a way that he's not normally weird, because he felt almost like an embarrassment. Like, you're too old to let your daughter, like, you know, like, your kid's too old to be acting like a tomboy. And so my dad, he's like, you know, like, you can't get a gun because you're a girl. And I was like, that's fucking stupid. This kid doesn't even know how to use a gun. You said it was not. I was like, we agreed upon this. Also, that has nothing to do with my ability to shoot. I'm a better shot than you, actually. But I was like, okay, this is a fight now. As you age, you like, we can remember these moments of like oppression, or moments of sexism, or, and having children bring it up to adults, because they're like, oh, what? No. Like, they're like, it's like, well, define it. Like, what does it look like? What is sexism then, if this isn't it? And he can give me an answer. And I'm like, you can't give me an answer because you're wrong. Don't talk to me for the rest of the day.
So did you get your gun?
Yeah. Yeah. At 11.
At 11, okay. Yeah.
From this point, as I was older, I recognized, like, what I'm doing is perceived as inappropriate, or socially inappropriate. And I don't trust where I am, or where my family is in life, to be able to hold me or respond. So I decided to closet myself. And I remember, I can still see it so vividly. And this led to me forgetting about myself. And this led to me getting so far away from myself spiritually, or as a person, that I cracked. But I remember burying myself, and I was looking up in a grave, and dirt slowly filling in. It dawned on me, like, oh, I'm not going to be able to be the person that I am, that I want to be. And so I, in that moment, started burying myself, and I said, I'm going to come back to you. But I forgot. And so I lived like that, and I made the choice to bury myself and to closet myself, essentially, and to try and force something that wasn't mine. And so I started dissociating heavily, because, again, I have like 2 parents who are struggling with addiction.
Yeah.
Caring for myself, caring for them.
Yeah.
And caring for my mother, because, stressed out men that have drinking issues are assholes. But, she was mean to me, I was mean to him, he was mean to her. It's just like a cycle. And so I had this whole expansive world in cities and doing things, but I'm like, suffering in my home in Mississippi. I would be in a full conversation, but I would be living in my world. And my body was speaking for me, but I was so over here. Yeah. I was so far. I'm so separated, though. I wasn't deep within. I was separated from myself. I had met my first boyfriend at the time. He like introduced me to like Alan Watts and stuff like that. When I'm in my 20s, I was exactly 20 years old. I remember just like recognizing the gravity of myself, and I was like, there are 2 people inside of me, and I don't know what to do. And I started feeling like this physical, like, pulling apart, this ripping almost. There was like a dark side and a white side. So I had completely, like, I had no harmony within my energies. There was no flow, and there were complete different bodies to eventually manifest to 2 polarities of myself.
Were there also like connotations of, good, bad, or like what?
Right.
Okay.
Right. See, I didn't know. Okay, I can like create this story that is convenient, that seems like a solvent, or like the solution, but like I don't know. But it was in this moment that I saw these 2 figures in me, that I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, I I don't want to have to go, I was like, I don't want to go into like a mental institution. So like, I was like, I'm like, nobody's going to believe me. People are going to like tell my parents and think that I'm like fucking insane. And I'd forgotten the secret that I buried, and I kept having dreams about this like box or like something hidden away. And like something is important that I've put away and I don't know what it is. And so I'm chasing myself while losing myself, but trying to find it.
Yeah.
And I just remember I was so split. And at this time, I was straight edge. I didn't drink or do any drugs. I saw a shadow start to take form into a monstrous form. Like, I see my monsters are manifesting themselves for myself. I'm like, what? The monsters that we see so much are us.
Yeah.
And the things that we're afraid of. And the more that we hide, the more that we're trying to, like, even like the kid in ourselves is like, we're trying to get our own attention.
Yeah.
And so all the symbolism that we create for ourselves is us trying to bring ourselves back down to our attention into ourselves. And so I recognize like, oh, okay, I can't avoid this. I have to now do the task that I set. And so I remember and like visualizing myself, facing myself and seeing myself, or just like even seeing these issues. So I remember seeing this like red thread and it started going, weaving itself like a suture in between the two figures, like the two polarities and densities of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it tied off and it like blew, like it like had like a white light. And I started to whirl like this, but like around my body.
Yeah.
And I like shot up.
Yeah.
I went off of the planet onto another planet and I was a part of like a fungal network and I was a little mushroom.
Okay.
And I found like humility in the like embodiment of a mushroom or like the existence of a little mushroom. And like the humility of understanding all but being from one, like being one, a part of one, you know, because that is the life of a mushroom. You're a part of a network, but you're still you. And then I came back down to myself. When I went into myself, I was like, okay, let's go deeper. And then I started to go deeper in my subconscious and it got really dark. And I became scared. Because I started to go somewhere that maybe wasn't even myself anymore. For knowing that connectivity, being connected to everything. And then I understood, I was like, I'm not ready for this. So I climbed back up. And then when I climbed back up, I remember it was almost like steel doors were like closing. Not like it was forbidden, but it's like it's locked. You can't go here yet. And then I came back to myself and was like, whoo. And
that's a lot.
It was a lot, yeah. And like my boyfriend was just there the whole time. That was the first time where like I had to like come rescue myself. And it took even further after there to realize like that as an adult that I was trans. And I started after that having like my like spiritual abilities like really took off. But I didn't have control. And I didn't know how to have control. And I knew this. And I also knew like, well, I just opened up a box.
Yeah.
And now I'm fully open and I don't know what to do or how to do these things. And things got really intense.
Understandably, you didn't always share what the extent of your abilities.
Yeah. Honestly, the emergence has only been within the past 5 years of my life.
Yeah.
Because after all of this, I was still so raw and open from a lot of these spiritual experiences. But I defied myself, defied God, defied everything, and I fully slipped into my own alcoholism, into my own struggle and pain. And I just lost grip. A big part of me climbing out of myself was started that way, and perhaps that was an avenue in which I could access the box I buried, the self I buried so long ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's, I ended up dropping out of school. I was working like 3 jobs in going to school. And,
That's tough.
yeah, and it's really tough. Yeah, and I knew that I was starting to come out of myself, and I cut all my hair off. I started to dress the way that I wanted to. I was far more masculine, and so I was reading like queer theory, and I was reading. I started like reading like more like topics on transsexuality,
Mm-hmm.
but I was like I was so held by people that were not like myself, which I think was important. All of my friends that in college that helped me come out were, I mean, they were like gay people and queer people, but like I didn't know any trans people until I moved to Buffalo. And so my partner at the time, who's now my current like best friend, she's my sister. And these like sweet like guys that I played music with, they were also my roommates, and we all worked together. Like they helped me kind of they brought the words, and they they helped illuminate me and like help me illuminate myself, and it was really beautiful, um, the way that I was gifted with people with care, um, and I still fought against it, and but you're never ready.
Yeah.
You know, it's you're ready when you make the decision, and it's kind of like the saying ready or not, like that is a readiness in itself. You're ready to face whatever you need to now when you begin this new thing that you're not ready for.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of like understanding yourself and even your spiritual power and your emergence is similar to what I experienced with my own transsexuality and gender, was that no matter how much I read, no matter how many people that I meet,
Mm.
no matter how much I think, I will never be ready. And the readiness comes from within. The readiness is just ready for anything that you must face and that you must take on and that you must do. That is how ready you can be. And so I took that and I moved to Buffalo. I I took that second self and I put it manifested into an entire life, a new life.
Mm-hmm.
And, later on in my task as a person has been like going through the shame and even like hatred of self for the self that you had to be, that you were, and like reincorporating. It's almost like an alchemy, reincorporating yourself into the new self that you've created.
Yeah.
And this is something that is very special about trans people, that is very divine, because what we do, whether we have spiritual abilities or not, is divine. It's beautiful, and it is a gift, and it is a reminder to humans how we can be. Even if you're trans or not, it is a reminder of how to find yourself, of how to live as yourself, no matter what it takes. And learning that you won't have to lose it all if you honor yourself. And I didn't. All the things that I thought that I would have to lose, I was readying myself for the wrong things. I was ready to lose my family, my friends, my parents, even myself. But I'm like, I'm not going to lose myself. And when you don't lose yourself and you focus on that person and you're able to bloom them, you show someone that they can know. And so my parents didn't have to lose me. My family didn't have to lose me. And if they did, it would be their choice. And that's a big choice to give someone. And people won't take it if you know how to hold them. And it is a sacrifice to like, it's not a sacrifice, but it's, I did have to help my family learn who I am. But that's also part of the vulnerability and I think the beauty of the process. And not everyone can share that. not everyone has the tools or the abilities to share that, but I'm eternally grateful that I was able to share that and show myself. Because I had to show it to myself too, you know? Like, I'm new. So, as I learn myself, you may too.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So they've kind of like, that's like been a blueprint for my own spiritual awakening. And like I said, like that alchemy of self is like, that is magic.
This concludes this episode of the Spiritual Emergence podcast, where we heard from Sam about his struggle to honor and express the person he knew himself to be, despite shame and self-hatred. Sam shared how dreams and visions spontaneously offered him a way to reintegrate his divided sense of identity and build a new life. Many thanks to Sam for so candidly sharing his story. He is so articulate that you may not have noticed, but in his storytelling, Sam would introduce a topic, move away from it, and then circle back to say more. And I believe that's because it was hard for him. It's very personal, private, and very painful. Sam, I honor you in speaking up so that others know that they're not alone in whatever their struggle is. Thank you for your words of wisdom. Until next time, Waylighters, wishing you peace on your journey.